but you won't. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to The Unaffiliated. I'm your host, Aaron McNabb, and what we're going to be doing is giving you a unique, I hope a unique, maybe weird, strange view of life. It's not metaphysical or spiritual or anything like that, but it's still weird in its own way. And I think it's relevant and can be helpful to some people. Um, for some things, there's a lot of depression and sadness and worry and anxiety out there. And I think maybe some of the things we talk about here can be helpful for that. So that's the plan. This is our pilot episode. Kind of what we do is I set up some stuff to talk about. I feel really weird about doing scripted shows. I feel like it's kind of manipulative in a way, especially if you're doing a show about something that you believe. So I just like to talk. I just want to talk. I want it to come out. I want to make mistakes and say things wrong when I say I'm wrong. I think the dialogue is a much better way to go because I'm honestly not trying to convince anyone of anything. I'm just saying if you're unhappy in your current life, maybe this can help and maybe not. So, how can you decide? Well, that's what we're going to start with. So, a couple quotes to start out with. We're going to start with this one by Friedrich Nietzsche. Um, Here, the ways of men divide. If you wish to strive for peace of soul and happiness, then believe. If you wish to be a disciple of truth, then inquire. We're going to be doing the second one. So, if you're feeling peaceful of soul and happy, you're going to want to tune out now. I'll give you a second. Just going to want to click a thing or maybe just turn off the television and walk away. I'll wait. Okay, good. For the rest of you, this is what we're going to be doing. And the payoff is huge. So when I was 13 years old, I went to the movie Joe versus the Volcano. And at that time, I was super duper in the Christian world. I had just stopped participating in communion, but I was still very much a believer. And I saw this scene. Now, the video is a little messed up because I haven't worked out the video, but this is as good as I've gotten it so far, so bear with me.
All of this, like, life seems unbelievable to me.
My father says that almost the whole world is asleep. Everybody you know, everybody you see, everybody you talk to. He says that only a few people are awake, and they live in a state of constant, total amazement.
So when I saw that film and I saw that line, it struck me. And I thought, that can't be true. I was very unhappy. Um, I experienced a severe depression, anxiety, sleep problems, and things as a teenager. And so the idea that someone could live in constant amazement, that blew my mind. And I wanted to know what that was. And so I really started to hit the inquiring every way that I possibly could, which didn't make me popular within my Assembly of God kind of Christian group, and made it difficult even within my friends and family and social groups. But it was kind of a secret quest that I always went on, and I really found to be profoundly helpful. Okay, so this is one thing that I want to talk about. So, like, I was super depressed, and yet I had essentially everything that you could need. I'm a white male, so I was a member of the majority group and the privileged group. I was a Christian, and so I was a member of the majority group there and in a supportive situation. And yet I was just absolutely miserable all the time. And I thought a lot of it was due to Christian teachings, like everything went wrong at the Garden of Eden, and then we have to have pain and suffering, and that's kind of just the theme from there. And I think maybe we just don't know how to look at life any other way. But there are different ways to look at it. But it's strange to me. What I like to think of when I was a kid, we watched television for 1 hour a day, and my sister would always watch Little House on the Prairie. And so that is kind of what I think of as pre-electricity survival. Obviously, there was lots of different groups, but our ancestors all had to try to survive pre-electricity, and it was sometimes hard. They sound a little bit like Mickey Mouse in this, but check it out.
Just had enough food to get us from Mankato. 3 days, 6 meals, there can't be much left.
Half a loaf of bread, small piece of bacon,
Three apples, three apples, some cornmeal, and some coffee.
Winter was over a month ago. Flowers in the window box when we left home. Wrong time of the year for a blizzard.
Maybe it won't last.
Carolyn, there's better than 2 feet of snow out there. If it stopped right now, we'd be in trouble. That doesn't seem likely. It seemed likely.
So that's just kind of to give you an example. So there they are, starving to death, rationing their food and trying to figure out how they're going to survive. No emergency services, no running water, no heat, no nothing, right? And that was how all of our ancestors survived. Now, if we had, taken a time machine and then like knocked on the door and, gave them a hamburger or something, they probably would have been like, you live in a world where you could just drive to Taco Bell at 2 in the morning and get food for very low prices. And then they would say, well, you must be the happiest people to ever live. And I'd be like, oh no, we hate life. So that's the thing, is like once you kind of step out of the insanity of entitlement, essentially, that we all enjoy, you will start to see the world of constant total amazement. So we're going to talk about how we miss obvious things. The Monty Hall problem. If you've heard of this, then that's good. If not, I'm going to try to take you through it, but we might not get it perfect. So we're going to do the best we can. Okay, I need to teleport over there. All right, so the money problem. I'm going to pretend that you're on a game show. Let me get over here. There. Okay, and that there are 3 doors, and we've got door number 1, door number 2, and door number 3. And behind each door there is a prize. 2 of the prizes are a goat, and the other prize is an awesome, expensive car. Okay. Now it doesn't matter what the prizes are. If you love goats and hate emissions of carbon monoxide, then that's not the point. The point is you have one thing that everybody really wants and 2 things that are kind of like, wah, wah. Okay, so that's what you do. So the first thing you do is you consult whatever kind of magic. You got a 1 out of 3 chance. You know that's 33%. You're confident in that. But you want to choose right. The crowd's watching. You want to get this right. So let's do like child's birthday or like favorite number or something like that. You don't know. But let's say that you chose door number 3 after you go through your decision-making process. And then I say, okay, well, let's see if you were right. Oh, wait. Before we do that, I'd just like you to know that behind door number 1, which you didn't choose, was a goat. So, hey, you're still in play. But just to torture you a little bit, would you like to stay with door number 3? Or would you like to switch to door number 2? Now, when I ran this experiment in a psychology class on about 9 students, none of them switched. And it was really obvious when you're doing this in the situation why. Everybody's like, pick door number whatever when you're going through like the initial picking. And so you kind of choose it either based on whatever psychology you think is going to be the most fruitful, or maybe because of the crowd. Either way, you really believe in some level that door number 3 is the best chance for you to get that car. Unfortunately, the variables have now changed, and switching is the correct thing to do. So to switch from door number 3 to door number 2 will give you the best chance to win the car. However, in my experience, most people don't do that. And some people, even after you tell them that that's correct, they won't believe it. And so they either have to do a million trials themselves, or there is a website you can go to that has it all set up and you can do it that way. But what you will find is that if you switch, you will win 2/3 of the time, 66%. If you do not switch, you will win 1/3 of the time. But it is hard to switch. I mean, if you pick door number 3 and then you're really invested in that, because what would it feel like if door number 3 was the car, even though it's only going to happen 1 out of 3 times? If it was, it's going to be psychologically devastating, and the crowd's going to be like, "Why would you do that? You had to write the whole time." So it makes sense why we make some of these mistakes, but we really have to be careful of them because we will always do the wrong thing thinking we're doing the right thing, right? Okay, so let's give a couple examples of that. Here's the crime rate starting from 1993. This is according to the Bureau of Justice Statistics and the FBI statistics. Violent crimes and property crimes, we see a consistent decline. From 1993, this goes to 2016, consistent decline, right? However, people's perception is that after 2011, which is probably correlated with 9/11 and people being more fearful in general, the perception was that crime was increasing. And so we vote based on our perceptions. And so, the people that the strategies that we're implementing are based on psychology, not based on reality. And that's a problem. And so this is kind of what I see happening a lot. This is the knee jerk, kind of immediate, common reaction to something that happens. So this is an old story. You have the drunk guy, and he says he's looking for a quarter that he dropped. When I heard it originally, it was somebody lost their keys, and then the constable comes by. Did you drop it here? No, I dropped it 2 blocks down the street. And why are you looking for it here? Because the light's better here. And I feel like that's what we do. The entire like news media, and everything else, they're all looking for the answers, not where they are, but where it's easy to have this discussion, and you can have 18 people on a panel, and they can all argue like these two ideas that they have, and just beat it to death. When really we're just in the completely wrong spot the whole time. Well, how can we maybe find the right spot? Where should we be looking? Well, who is good at answering difficult problems? We know that simple problems, can have simple answers, but what if you want someone to build a computer or launch a rocket or something like that? Those aren't things that you're like, oh, well, let's just do this. They're complicated and difficult. Curing a disease, anything that we've figured out, electricity has been complicated and took, geniuses stacked on genius and genius for, generations in order to get something happen. So we know science is good at it. Well, let's break down who is doing science. This is the religious affiliation among the general public. So you'll see that over 3/4 of the general public, I believe this is in the United States, yeah, is some kind of Christian. So Catholic, mainline Protestant, or evangelical Protestant. But over half, well, it's not over half. How many is it? 20, 37, 48. Almost, or don't know or refused, would put it over half. Um, so we've got an increase from atheist 2%, atheist 17%, agnostic 2% to 11%, nothing in particular, 12% up to 20%. Don't know. I don't think that's it. Oh, okay, that was 1% up to 4%. And that would be my category. Don't know, refuse to answer, because I'm not even an agnostic. I mean, I don't even. They really try to put you into these little categories, and I don't fit well into them. So the people that we are reaping all the benefits of their work for electricity and medicine and everything. They're making our lives easier and safer and extending our lives and all that kind of thing. Are these people? But these aren't the people that we have running the show. Who do we have running the show? Almost all Christians. So I mean, this goes back to 1961. Almost 95% of Congress. We're talking both sides, Democrat and Republican. They can't get along at all. But what are they all? They're all Christian. And that continues. And Christians are great at some things, but they're not very good at solving complicated problems because they like things to be very black and white and simple. And so if you want them to solve something that's black and white, then they're the right people to call. Not if you want something complex, like how should we govern? And so first thing we need to do is we need to have a more representative Congress where we have different ideas, rather than just one group of people who, are arguing about the same things forever. Okay, so now you need to know a little bit about me and where I come from. I was raised in an evangelical church, Assembly of God, and these were the kind of books that I was taught from. I was taught that dinosaurs and man lived together, and I believed this up until I was in my late teens. I read Origin of Species when I was 17, and that was kind of the beginning of the end. I don't know why it didn't occur to me that, all predators have eyes that face forward and prey have eyes that face sideways, or that the Deinonychus probably wouldn't have a terrible claw to eat citrus fruit with his super sharp teeth, but you don't, I was being the believer, not the investigator. When you investigate these things, I mean, literally, I think I should have had this stat up, but 98% of scientists believe in evolution. So 2% don't. The people that have actually investigated it overwhelmingly believe in it. This is just like how the church denied that the sun was the center of our solar system for years. Evolution is true. If you believe in God, that means God did it. But it just is true, and it's relevant, and we need to know it in order to understand who we are and what we are. I remember people would say like, "Hey, if dinosaurs were real, like on my baseball team and stuff, how did you get them all on the ark?" And then I would say, page 37, there, Parasaurolophus, right there. No duh. My lip syncs off, but we're gonna keep trucking this time because we're gonna make it through. We believe. All right. So this is what a typical altar call at the end of a big kind of service looked like in the churches that I went to. I'm going to have you guys take a look at that.
If there's anything in your heart between you and God, if you don't know the Lord, if you've never known Him, or if you're backslid tonight, listen in the chapel, listen at home, listen here at this congregation. If there's anything between you and God, do not hesitate. Slip out of your pew and get down on your face down here right now. Come right now. Come right now. Right now. Right now. In the balcony, come right now. Hurry. Hurry. If there's sin in your life, if there's anything between you and God, this is the day. This is the hour. This is the moment to get clean before the Lord.
Okay. So the reason I show this is twofold. One is for you to understand where I come from and where my biases are. I still have a difficult time loving Christianity in the same way that I love Buddhism and Islam, even, even though Islam is kind of an offshoot of Christianity, Abrahamic religion. I can see the beauty and appreciate a lot of ones. I was traumatized by some of this stuff, and it's interesting because perspective. If you are an Assembly of God person, that probably looks like the most beautiful thing you can see, the Spirit moving through people, people being redeemed, turning their, giving their lives over to Christ, and um, being born again. Like what could be finer than that? But if you're like me, someone that were, an abusive situation like that, or if you're somebody that's never been around that, seeing adults behave in sort of this, um, I don't know, ecstatic sort of way, might be alarming and off-putting. The other thing that I struggle with religion is it is completely a choice that a person makes about what they believe or don't believe. And there's no way for you to verify whether they're being honest and genuine. And so it's easy for people who like to take advantage because you could be a bad person. I mean, like, look at Paul in the Bible. He was like a bad person forever. And then he says he has a vision, and then all of a sudden he gets to be in charge of stuff. And I'm not saying Paul wasn't a valid person, but I think there's a lot of people like this.
I'm Peter Popoff. This is my precious wife, Elizabeth. And it's always such a joy and a privilege to share with you the reality of God's power. Is that right?
Oh, that's true. Pete, I've been reading these testimonies since 1981, and I know a lot about testimonies. And
Amen.
I know that God's still healing. He's still out there working amongst His people.
And Liz, He's also supernaturally canceling debts.
That's right.
So the adults in my church, even when I was very young, I could really I mean, and I don't know if Peter Popoff's been proven as a scam artist, but supernaturally canceling debt sounds kind of crazy, I think, a little bit. And so I saw people like that. We would have, the offerings at the end of a service, and they would say, whatever you give today, you will receive twofold of. And the adults believed it. It was like pyramid scam times a million. So that's again part of my background, which I rejected very early. I left the island, and I've been afloat ever since. I've never really landed anywhere, but this is kind of how I see things, and I think this can be helpful and valuable. Before we get into this, well, let's go through this. So here I just chose the top four religions in the world, conservatives and liberals, because they're, duking it out right now in America, and then philosophy and science, which are similar and hate each other in some ways too. What I find is that in any groups like this, it doesn't matter which, these are just one I chose, the people think that they're correct and that other people are wrong. And there's different levels of how they think they're correct and other people are wrong. But the most extreme level is if you're not with us, you're against us. So that means they think of someone who's unaffiliated like me as an enemy to all of them, which makes my life unpleasant. But thankfully, most people are more accepting than that in real life. But there are a lot of people that think that their way is really the only way to unlock truth. And that's just not what I've found. What I found, I mean, with not because I'm a genius or smart or anything, but we had the internet. I happened to be born in 1977, which means that I had America Online when I was in my late teens, and had the ability to do research on things that nobody had, could have done in the amount of time. And so just seeing how humans operated and being interested in psychology and philosophy, started seeing patterns and different things. So anyway, what I know about the truth is it's complicated, and I have been working on it for my entire life, even I think in childhood as I was, trying to come up with answers for vexing questions, that I was, loving wisdom. So the first time I heard the story of Solomon, and the two mothers who there was a dispute over who was the mother of a baby, and Solomon said, "Cut the baby in half." And then, of course, the real mother said, "No, no, no, you can give it to her. Just don't kill it." And so that was his wise way of exposing who was telling the truth and who was lying. But his story didn't end in wisdom. Read Ecclesiastes, which is just an amazing book of the Bible. Let me give you the beginning. Meaningless, meaningless. Everything's meaningless. There's nothing new under the sun, says the wisest man in human history, according to the Bible. Wow, that took something to digest. So I left Solomon to his thousand concubines or whatever, his harem. And I set off on my own. So anyway, what I found is that all of these things have parts of the truth. They can see parts of the truth. But the real truth, whether you believe of that as like, you know, Brahma would be like the Hindu idea of it, or like some kind of singularity, or if you believe in heaven or an afterlife or things like that, um, then those things are probably complicated. We probably don't have the entire view of. Anyway, this is what I think it actually looks like. This is the view that I see, which is as long as you're focusing on the truth, any one of these can help you see parts of it. You're never going to get all of it. Not while we're alive. We're not smart enough. We don't see things clearly enough, and it's just not part of why we're here, I don't think. I think if we were supposed to know which one of these was the magic path, we would follow it. If there was some objective way to measure, then that wouldn't be that hard. But that's not what we get. My fear is that for a lot of people who are unhappy and miserable when they're, you know, even being faithful to these things, is that what they've done is rather than focusing on the truth, they focus on their group. And this is a form of like idolatry, and it's never going to help you be happy, um, because the truth is what makes people happy. And the truth is love, kindness, compassion, forgiveness, and it's the truth of all of these. If you go and look at the basic tenets of these, it's not like, oh, well, you have to believe Jesus is the Son of God. It's Jesus saying over and over again, what you should do, which is love and forgive and not judge and be nice, essentially. And that's kind of what they're all saying. But when we start trying to protect our group, we take out the be nice part and we just say, if you're not with us, you're against us, and we're going to just fight it to the very bloody end. And we're looking at it. We are facing a nuclear holocaust with a Christian led nation. Well, North Korea is I think technically atheists. I don't know what they actually believe because people aren't allowed to be free to practice what they might actually believe. But we also have the, Islam with ISIS and whatnot. So those are religious groups that we're having trouble with. Another way to think about this is if you imagine the truth was a Rubik's cube. My thing's not working. Let's see if I can get it to go. Okay, here we go. If you imagine the truth is a Rubik's cube, and let's say you're a Christian and you're like, okay, I see it. It's as clear as day. It's got a green in the upper left and a green in the lower right. That's indisputable. And then somebody else comes along who's maybe Islam, and they say, the upper right looks like red to me, and the bottom left looks like blue. So we're gonna have a problem. And then somebody else says, well, to me, it looks completely different. And then these people fight. And what's sad to me is if while they're fighting, like if there is a God, if there is a single God and a single truth, they all see it as much as they can understand the mind of God, right? They don't understand all of it. They can see part of it. And then they hurt other people that see other parts of it. It's like the saddest thing that could possibly be. Okay, so the lip sync spin-off, but we're gonna keep going here. Try to get it all in one shot. I would like to share with you guys a song that I wrote when I was a teenager about Jesus, and I hope that it can at least show you how I felt, and in many ways still how I feel. It'll take you a while to understand where I'm coming from as far as the religious leaders and whatnot. But I've loved Jesus. I always have, and I always will. I love Nietzsche too, and I love Socrates. So it's not probably what you're thinking it is, but just have a listen.
That's right.
There we go.
You're a winner, I'm a sinner, and yet you go to hell for a spell. You made a promise to doubting Thomas. What could you do? Lamb to slaughter, blood and water, forsaken soul, forgotten one. You died to save me, my sins enslaved thee, the fate of God's begotten Son. Crown of thorns as Mary mourns, his face destroyed, a cat's 9 tails. Lonely mountain, blood, sweat fountain, held in place by 9-inch nails. And those that loved him gather above him, waiting for the sun to shine. And those that killed him, their sins filled him. How many sins were mine? From truth ran God's lonely man. Turned my back and now live lost, like Satan's calling and angels falling. What could I do? And I deserve this lifelong service. Eternal debt cannot be
Oops. I'm caught in a loop now. Huh. Okay. So, we're going to be summing up here. Whoa, I'm flying. Oh man, I was so close to being able to make it. Um, I beseech you. Now I have to finish the show from my knees. Which is fine. So that is going to be it for the first show. Now, our shows aren't going to generally be like this. This is my confession show where I tell you where I'm coming from, what my biases are, and the kind of mistakes that I'm probably prone to make. I would love it if you would help me um, continue my search to clarify the truth. And I hope that it will make people happy. What I know is that if you do believe in something, I don't care which one it is. I mean, whatever you have to be passionate. You have to have self-discipline. Um, you can't be lukewarm, to put it in a kind of Christian way. Um, and so do what makes you feel passionate or excited or interested. You know, if you believe in something, then dedicate yourself to living that. And so for most people who are religious, your religion is all telling you the same thing. Shoot, it's telling you to be nice. And so be nice and go help people, and go love people. It's not hard to tell if things are coming from the right place or the wrong place. You can correct someone out of love, but most people operate out of contempt, anger, fear, hatred, or just superiority. You can see that. You see it on Twitter, you see it on Facebook, where somebody's just trying to either be morally superior or they're being contemptuous or different things like that. That's not the truth. I mean, that person is lost. That's how you can tell, because it's not hard to be loving and to be kind. Children are excellent at it. So it is something we can do. Before we quit, I do need to give a shout out to the folks at Flipside who make this all possible. I love this software. I still struggle with some of the technology, but I'm excited about the future of it. Going to be doing lots of movie reviews in terms of what we can learn from films as far as life lessons, things like that. I'm also going to be just sharing kind of my struggle with health problems. I've got some chronic health issues, kind of how I go through that. So I'm looking, to talk to people and kind of share some ideas and spread the hope around a bit. To see if we can do. Oh, I was gonna say, like, the problem with government we can solve overnight. I figured out how to solve it. It's easy. I think something like 88% of the people in the United States make less than $100,000 a year. So let's make that a voting party, because it's almost all of us. It's 88%, right? So if we all voted as a block to get people who are like us in there, people who understand how devastating it can be to be living month to month or week to week, and then getting caught up in all the ways that, um, you know, things like credit cards or payday loans and stuff try to take advantage of people. And it's just awful. So if we voted as a block, we could just fix things. So that's that. And I'll try to come up with easy ways to fix the world every episode at the end. So I'm going to have myself play us off here. Thank you for watching, and I hope to hear from you. Thanks again to the people at Flipside for making this possible. I love the software. It keeps getting better. And signing out. I think. Eventually. Take it easy.